Welcome back. Watinta bafazi, watinta imbokodo. You know that's the saying that you're going to be hearing quite a lot of, especially this particular month, as it is Women's Month. But now, if women are the rock of the nation, why are they treated so unfairly?
So studies have shown they face the hardest financial hardships, right? This was evident in the months following the hard lockdown. Now, national debt advisors say 58% of loans in arrears are actually held by women. This is due to the gender pay gap, motherly commitments and financial abuse. So let's discuss this further with Naledi Totana from National Debt Advisors. Naledi, thank you so much for your time this morning. A very good morning to you. I mean, we had to just witness as a country during the harder lockdowns about how women were the ones that were marginalized the most, because they're the ones that had to, number one, be off work to raise the children when schools were also closed, to help with the education component of the children, many of them not being able to return to work. And as a result of this, obviously having some severe financial impacts, I almost feel as though as a country we're not speaking to exactly what happened and the effects of actually having a COVID-19 lockdown of that magnitude and its effect on women.
Well, that's actually a concerning matter at this point, because women contribute to at least 57% of the credit active consumers in South Africa. This is based on the 19 million of the very same number. This is noted in a report released by the South African Credit Bureaus combined as a whole. The very same report also notes that at least 58% of these loans in arrears are actually held by women. Now, supporting these knock-on effects is the South African Human Research Council, which notes that at least 60% of South African children are noted to have absent fathers, whereas at least 40% of women are noted to be single mums, which evidently adds on to the financial burden.
Naledi, there will obviously be people who will be watching, and let me be a little more direct about it. My gender will be sitting there thinking, oh, they don't know how to handle their money. You know, I mean, yes, we are hearing financial abuse, the gender pay parity. You know, we are hearing all of those things, but how much of it has got to do with the fact that they are just not handling their money well? They are misusing their finances. Is there a percentage of that in this 58%?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say there's a percentage. However, I would speak to the fact that we do actually have a serious matter in terms of the gender pay gap. So South Africa has different types of legislation and policies aimed at preventing income inequality, gender discrimination within the workplace. However, you'd find that a stagnant medium gender pay gap of at least 23 to 35% still persists. And then again, we get our unemployment rate, which doesn't seem really to be decreasing for any fact. But most importantly, I would allude to financial literacy, which basically speaks to the concept of understanding the concept of saving, investing, and most importantly, managing one's debt.
You know, as you're speaking about the concept of financial literacy, Naledi, it's unfortunate that when it comes to the South African narrative, a lot of single mothers, what they used to do is be able to sell items so that they can look after the kids, right? The mother that is an informal trader would send their children to school versus on the money of selling vegetables and fruit on the side of the road, right? So in terms of being able to just see the severity and the impact that coming from a single parent household to having to do what you can to raise these children and now having to suffer the effects of a COVID-19 pandemic, what is the overall impact that this actually has on the country, given the point that you made, saying that if 60% of households have got absent fathers, that means that the mother's responsibility it is to raise a child, and now further exacerbated with how much they actually have to pay back in debt. What is the actual overall impact of all of this?
Well, like I said, in terms of the unemployment rate, it has not seemed to have improved thus far. And currently at the moment, a large percent of the country is still suffering from the effects of COVID-19. And if we look at the stats, basically, at National Debt Advisors, most of our consumers are male as opposed to female, noted that they've successfully returned to work, whereas females noted that they're still struggling in terms of achieving an income, to say the least.
What then becomes the advice from the National Debt Advisors? I mean, obviously, because yours would be to try and help women and help anybody, in fact, not just women, men as well. But in this particular case, considering everything that women are having to then deal with, what then becomes the advice? We're always hearing from, the finance minister and everybody, of course, that is related to anything that is finance, that we need to tighten our belts. I can tell you now, South Africans don't have mbobo anymore to tighten their belts any further than they already have, considering everything that's happening. But what advice are you still able to give as the National Debt Advisors?
Well, most importantly, creating financial goals, right? So you also want to keep track of your expenditure, most importantly. And secondly, you'd also like to invest in your future. National Debt Advisors takes pride at contributing to financial literacy. So our main goal at National Debt Advisors is to educate the public in terms of financial literacy. So it doesn't speak to only a South African consumer or an individual having to manage their debt. We focus on the small things like budgeting, saving, cutting out your luxurious debt, and most importantly, having one to invest in their future as opposed to general or mundane expenses at this very same point.
Well, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you very much for your time. Naledi Totana there giving us the latest advice in terms of just these